Hello. It is a great pleasure to present the investment nannies law specifics to this audience, and I'm very thankful to KPMG Ukraine for the invitation. Following up on what Dmitro and Olga has already provided you with, I will be stopping by a little bit in more detail as to what the law of Ukraine on state support to investment projects with significant investment actually stands for. The law, which has been regarded by Ukrainian media and very, I would say, actively welcomed as investment nanny law, and this is how the general public actually knows the law, is not a standalone legislative piece. It is a package of pieces of legislation, the law itself, the changes to the tax code, to the customs code, and necessary bylaws. And it is not actually about the investment nanny or so-called state-sponsored investment manager. It is rather and foremost about investment incentives. It is about guarantees from the state and about a special framework for cooperation between investor and the state. It is a unique legislative framework, and you will be getting to know a little bit more why I regard it as a unique one. And it has been around for quite a while. It was passed by the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine in late 2020. It came into effect in February 2021, but the necessary bylaws and the changes to other pieces of legislation, they actually came as a whole in September 2021. So it has been almost 2 months since investors are able to actually reap the benefits of the investment nannies law, use the incentives, and develop a new kind of partnership with the state of Ukraine. I will kindly ask, okay, yeah, now we got the next slide. So what is actually an investment project with significant investment? The law does provide for a strict limit of specifics that the project has to meet in order to be eligible to receive the state support or incentives, which will be stopping by a little bit later. And it does say that an investment project has to be providing for construction, modernization, technical or technological re-equipment of so-called investment object. It should be CAPEX investment. At least 80 jobs are to be created within the process of implementing the investment project, and 20 million euros is a threshold for investment project of that kind. 5 years is the limit, which is not to be exceeded by an investor to implement the project in order to meet the requirement by the law, of the law. Industries. A wide range of industries is actually covered by the law, and I would say here that the focus of the law is to initiate, or rather incentivize, creation of added value here in Ukraine, and that is why the so-called processing industry, and there is no legislation piece that would strictly define it in Ukraine, so there is an opportunity to actually initiate and I would rather say to tell the necessary officials how the processing industry is to be defined here. So it is a core of the law, core industry here. Other industries which you may also find on the slide are eligible here, and it covers waste management, education, R&D, healthcare, warehousing, and many more. There is a list of requirements an applicant or somebody that we now regard as investor, but there will be another actor called investor if we follow the terminology of the law. So we stop by a name of applicant, should meet the necessary requirements which are defined by the law These requirements are very of a precise list, and they're not really unmeetable, I would say, because they do exclude from the scope of the law sanctioned bodies. They do exclude bodies that have tax arrays, that are in the process of liquidation, and many similar issues that are obvious for those who are actually going to implement an investment project to avoid. So there is also one necessary piece of information to keep in mind. The number of applicants, or at this point investors, who are willing to implement an investment project is not limited. So there is an open path for partnership, for developing partnership and bringing up an investment project along with partner companies. The other actor that I have slightly touched upon, an investor with significant investment, is a typical special purpose vehicle, which is to be created or established by an applicant and which will be responsible for implementing the project itself. There is also a list of requirements to it. The core here is that the investor with significant investment should not be doing any sort of activity apart from implementing the project, because it is a special purpose vehicle. Going on, forms of state support, something that I have started with, types of investment incentives. There are 4 types of investment incentives that the law provides for: tax exemptions, import duties exemptions, construction of related infrastructure, and a possibility to receive a land plot on preferential terms. We'll slightly cover each of them, but without the details, so we are following the timeline that we have. Tax exemptions, VAT exemption, exemption from the corporate profit tax, and reduced rates of land tax are available to those who are willing to obtain state support under the nannies law. Import duties exemptions. So investor is able to import new equipment in order to use it within the timeline of implementing the project on a preferential terms. So import duties exemptions is one of the forms of state support here. Construction of related infrastructure is something that also constitutes a very significant part of this stimulus package, and it provides for a possibility for an investor to receive from the state the financing necessary for building the related infrastructure. By saying this, I need to stop by the specific. Investor is to build the necessary is not to build the necessary infrastructure. Investor is to indicate that the specific types of related infrastructure are needed for the purpose of implementing the project, and the state will be bidding in order to ensure that this infrastructure is constructed by the cost of the state or a local community if it takes part in providing incentives to an investor. Land plots, as some of you may know, in Ukraine, there is an auction procedure for obtaining land plots, and investors utilizing the benefits of the law may avoid going into auctions and receive land plots within an easier procedure, which does not require them to go into auctions. Amount of state support. The state support may go up to 30% of the amount of investment planned within the framework of the project. And it constitutes of 2 parts: the cost of the related infrastructure, if investor utilizes this kind of benefit, and all funds released from tax duties or customs duties. Application procedure. It's important to remember that there are several actors within the process of obtaining or providing the incentives. The Ministry of Economy, whose representative will be stopping by their role a little bit after me. Ministry of economy is there to evaluate an application, and you may see the matters an application consists of. We'll be evaluating an application for state support and then passing the floor to the Cabinet of Ministers to enter or decide whether it wills or not to enter into a special investment contract with an investor. And a special investment contract, it is something that constitutes a very important part of the law. And it is the framework that I stopped by in the beginning of my presentation, a special framework where an investor may be entering into sort of partnership, contractual partnership with the state and a local community if it also uses its opportunity to provide incentives to the investor. And this contract is something that may be very well, construed in a way that investor wants to implement certain legal instruments into. UkraineInvest function, investment nannies function. We, as an authorized institution, authorized by the Cabinet of Ministers, we work to provide investor with an understanding of how the process works, what is the best way to utilize the benefits, and of which benefits that the law stands for. And we do investment promotion and support investors in resolving any sort of problematic issue that may arise within the process of preparing an application or further on implementing the project. And finally, I would say that there has been an active reception among the investors community of the possibility to use incentives provided by the law. And there are 27 investment projects now within the so-called pipeline of UkraineInvest. Those investors who has indicated their interest in using the law and applying for state support, I would say that some of them are more active and will be, as we hope, submitting their application to the Ministry of Economy very soon this year. The overall amount of investment into this project of planned investment goes up to $2 billion US. UkraineInvest team is open to new opportunities and is open to providing support if any representatives of this audience are interested in utilizing the benefits of the law. I will stop at this point and pass the floor to the next speaker. And thank you very much once again. We'll be glad to answer any questions which you may have. Thank you.